Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just found another sequence in Matthew 27, and this one, this is the type that if I were to go through the Bible again and look for these, I could potentially get that number up close to 1,000 references. This one is very much encoded and interpolated in the text itself, and so these are historical events that, if you go in and look for certain keywords, the sequence is playing out over and over again, and so. This is a little bit of just a victory lap for me at this point, and just proof of the fact that if a person were to go in and do this and look for these keywords in a particular sequence, you would find that everywhere, literally. And so it doesn't have to explicitly be documenting a sequence of events if you just look for the keywords like I've highlighted here. So starting in Matthew 27:1, it references chief priests and elders, okay? Then it says in verse 2, delivered. Okay, then it says in verse 5, it talks about the temple, which is God's elect. Verse 9, it talks about the children of Israel. Verse 10, it talks about the Lord appointed me. Okay, and so those are all references to God's elect and salvation. Then in verse 11, it says, and Jesus stood before the governor. Okay, when he returns, he's going to now be up against these power structures. Verse 19, when he was set down on the judgment seat. Okay, when he returns in this massive rock carved without hands, his so-called UFO, his judgment seat. That's a reference in verse 19. Verse 20, persuaded the multitude. Okay, this great tribulation after the elect are taken away is a time of sifting out the mixed multitude. Okay, and he's going to persuade them by preaching the gospel, in the sky, and then pleading with all flesh with plagues. Now there's a reference to Christ returning with his elect. Verse 27:14 is a number that oftentimes references his elect. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. Okay. And so this is the entire earth coming up against Christ in the battle of Armageddon, but he'll be with his elect. Also in 1 Thessalonians 3:13 and all my other sequence videos. Verse 29, and a reed in his right hand. You know that reference in Revelation 11? Let me read that. And so it's just amazing to me. Again, this is what the Bible is stating, is going to happen. It's a fact at this point now. Revelation 11:1, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood saying, rise, measure the temple of God. Okay. And the altar and them that worship therein. That's a coded reference for the elect. And it has a reference here of given me like a reed unto a rod. Okay. This is when the Bible says that when Christ is going to, return and destroy, he's a quote rod of destruction. This is what it's talking about. And a reed in his right hand, and they bowed the knee before him. And so this is Christ returning with his elect. This is in verse 29, okay, 18:666. And so this is when he's going to be returning with his elect to destroy his entire left-hand side. Verse 30, and took the reed and smote him on the head. So again, the reed in this coded reference is the elect, and then they're going to be returning above in the sky, harming people on their head, okay, because their enemies will be beneath their feet, literally. And then we have a reference to the kingdom in 37:777. This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. Okay. And then in verse 42, King of Israel. And so that's a reference for the kingdom. So again, even if you just interpolate the words, and you can see that there's the sequence in there. It's God's DNA is the way that I want to, is the way that I describe it to people. And so that's the quote spirit of the Bible. Okay. And then that's my testimony. And it is a spirit of prophecy. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.